You're my elite group of parents. Okay, I hate when they do. Welcome. I'm glad you guys came out. That makes me happy. So my hope is that by the time you leave here tonight, you will have a new way of looking at your kids, and you'll have a new way of understanding some of the behaviors that you're seeing. And sometimes parenting a teenager feels very personal, and it feels like everything they do, they're doing to you. It just feels like they're doing it to you. And some of it is just, it's so brain and body connected and other kids connected. And if you can take yourself out of the equation, it gives you so much more power. And so that's what I'm hoping to give you tonight. Feeling, sometimes people feel like that there's nothing they can do to help their kids, and I'm going to give you some very concrete tips tonight that will help you with your kids. So whether you have a kid who's in 4th or 5th grade, or you have a kid who's in 9th or 10th grade, or even 11th grade, they are all dealing with the same issue. Sometimes kids, sort of come into adolescence earlier, sometimes kids come into it later, but adolescence has a lot of transitions in it, more than in any other stage of life. So you've got kids going from middle school to high school, and then high school to college, and from elementary school to middle school. That's a lot of transitions in one stage of life. So this talk is really for all of you. So here's the first thing. The first thing is, it's an interesting factoid. The number of new brain connections that are made during adolescence is equal to the number of brain connections that are made in the first 18 months of life. So go back and think of your infant, okay? Your teenager, what that little boy or girl was like as an infant. When they're born, right, they're just these piles of mush. They are 100% dependent on you for everything, right? You got to carry them, you got to feed them, you got to comfort them, you have to do it all. But in 18 months, those kids are walking, they're starting to have language, they for sure have personality, they are little people, right? They're starting to be little people. That's a lot. So think about all of that change that happens in their brain and their ability to be able to understand the world around them. Those amount of connections, that's what your teen is going through, okay? It's like another birth. Let's think of it as a rebirth, right? So there's a lot of changes, not just puberty, but literal brain growth. The gray matter in the brain is growing by leaps and bounds. And so what I call this is the brain on overload. So they are literally having feelings they have never felt before, literally. So they are, just talk about sex, right? I mean, their bodies are talking to them. I know, oh my God, don't talk about sex. Their bodies are talking to them for the first time. So they never felt those feelings before. They didn't feel what it was like when their body gets all tingly, when, they're attracted to somebody or someone, they have a crush on and doesn't want to talk to them. And they've never experienced those feelings before for the first time. They're having, their friendships are very different. So they're having feelings about their friendship that they've never had before. They're having, in the elementary school, kids don't really care who they play with, right? I mean, they'll just get on that list, and like on a snow day tomorrow, they might go, oh, they could go down the class list, want to come over, want to come over, want to come over. They're not as selective. But once they get to adolescence, they get that friendships are different. It's not just about playing Legos and Barbies anymore. Now I don't even know if they play with Barbies anymore, but they actually have to talk to each other. They have to communicate in a very different level, and that's very scary. A lot of kids don't know how to do that yet. So they get worried, and then there's, no one knows how to do this thing very well, so there's always a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of drama and all kinds of things. So they have all these new feelings, all these new thoughts, and all these new worries, as they go from elementary school to middle school, or middle school to high school, or high school to college. There are all these worries now that they didn't, elementary school is security. It's knowing for 6 years everything's going to stay the same. You're going to have your friends are going to stay the same. You go to the same school for 6 years. Everything stays the same. All of a sudden now it's, oh my God, what if I go to a new school and I don't know how to find the bathroom? Well, what if I don't like the food in the cafeteria? Or what if my friends don't like me anymore because they find friends from other schools? These are things I've never thought about before. So it creates a lot of anxiety. So the way this can impact your life every day after school, probably, or on the weekends when some social event comes up, is, so your kid comes back from school, And you've been thinking all day long, all the things you need to check in with them about, right? So you want to know how much homework do they have, you want to know how they did on the quiz, did they try out for the school play, or how did the sports practice go, or, so you're used to getting information about your kids. Parents are information junkies, right? We've been fed tons of information all the way through, starting from, nursery school and daycare, all the way through elementary school. You've got great relationships with the teachers, so they'll tell you everything that's going on in the classroom. They really know your kids. But once your kids hit middle school, each teacher has 100 kids. They don't necessarily have that same one-on-one relationship with you, so you have to depend on your kids to be your information center. And they don't want to be your information center. Okay, so you've got all this going on, and they walk in the door, and you're like, hey, honey, how was your day? And you're feeling like it's, you just were very upbeat, very neutral. And what you get is, it was fun, yeah, just leave me alone. So they immediately go to this, kind of attitude place. And you're saying to yourself, it goes one of two ways. So one way it goes, all I did was ask you how your day was. That did not require an attitude. Right? So you go to that place because you're like, I got to teach this kid a lesson. This kid is not going to be treating me with any kind of disrespect, and that's that's it. Okay, so that could go one way. And if your kid goes, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have an attitude. You leave me alone. And they're just off and running, right? They're off and running. So then it's like, well, that's it. Give me your phone. I'm taking your phone away from the night. Give me your computer. I'm taking your laptop. Give me your iTouch. Give me your iPad. So now, you're giving and taking away these technology tools because right now you feel like that's the only thing you've got, right? So you take those away. So huge fight ensues because all you said was, hey, honey, how was your day? Okay? So that's one way it might go. The other way it might go is that you get that red flag feeling. Oh my God, did something happen today? So you get like all nervous and you're like, oh my God, did the teacher say something to him? Did he get bullied or she bullied? Did something happen at practice today? So now you're in the parent worry place. And so then you go to, honey, are you okay? What happened? I'm fine. Just leave me alone. I'm fine. And again, you still get the, I'm fine. So here's what's going on. What's going on is a million little tiny things. Too many new feelings, too many thoughts, too many new worries. A million little things have gone on. Maybe they tripped getting on the bus and they felt like everybody was laughing at them, because boys especially very clumsy in middle school and high school because they're not in their feet are huge, but their bodies haven't grown into them yet, and they're smacking into everything, and they seem like, oh my God, what is going on here? But really, it's because their body is just not theirs anymore, and they haven't quite figured out how to maintain this body. So maybe that happened. Maybe they were in the cafeteria and it was pizza day and they got a little pizza on their t-shirt. And now the whole day everyone's going to think I'm a loser, I don't know how to eat, so they're walking along all day, covering their shirt from the grease from the pizza, or maybe they were in class and they raised their hand thinking they knew the answer to the question, and so then their teacher called on them and they didn't know it, and now they felt stupid, and now they're worried everybody is thinking things about them. And that's what happens, is this hyper self-consciousness of adolescence, that they now have this new thinking ability, new thought, that they never had before, which is now they get that other people think things about them. They never had that before. So in elementary school, the way kids define themselves is how they measure up against other kids. So maybe there's a spelling test at school, your kid's in 3rd or 4th grade, and there's a spelling test at school, and your kid comes home and says, hey, I got the highest grade in the spelling test, hey, me, or I got the lowest grade in the spelling test, right? So they sort of, they sort of gives you the measurement. This is why kids in elementary school love collections. They have the most baseball cards, or they have that's how they define themselves. I have this many of something. When they hit adolescence, the big change that happens is going back to the spelling bee. Not only, hey, I got the highest grade in the spelling test, part 1. Part 2, and everybody thinks I'm a big nerd because I got such a high grade. Or everybody thinks it's really cool, I'm so smart. But there's a part 2, not just, ooh, I got the greatest, whatever. And so this hyper self-consciousness is how they live their day. So during the day at school, they got to pretend everything's fine. So even though all those little things that happened, what they really want to do is come home, sit on your lap and cry. But, they can't do that now because, they're expected to behave like a teenager and they're going to suck it up. So, they suck it up all day long, and then by the time they get home, they are spent. And so what you need to do is use what I call I get it messages. So I get it messages are your ability to understand where your kid is. So rather than feeling personal that they have an attitude with you, this had nothing to do with you, right? You couldn't possibly think this had anything to do with you because you walked in the door and said, "Hi, how was your day?" Right? You didn't even do anything yet. There's nothing that literally you could have done to make this happen. And they flipped out on you. So when your kid flips out on you, seemingly like a crazy person, from out of the blue, chances are it's because all of this has been going on all day long. And by the time they get home, they just have to let it all go. So rather than either having the red flag conversation or the attitude adjustment, what you can do is say, "You know what, honey, I get it. You've had a long day. Let's just check in later." You're not giving them a pass forever, but you are understanding that right now they are not able to give you the answer you are looking for. Because the truth of it is, they don't know what's wrong. So when you start to say, "Well, what's wrong? Did something happen?" All of those things I just described to you have literally gone out of their head. They don't even remember what it was that irritated them. It just layer of irritation, of anxiety, of whatever. Maybe they got slighted by a friend, no one wanted to sit with them at lunch. Who knows? They've forgotten the particular incident. So the more you harp on them, the more frustrated they get because they have nothing to give you. And they know that you're getting frustrated and they're getting frustrated watching you getting frustrated. So my first tip of the night is, when you see your kid reacting in a way that feels way out of proportion to what you've asked, rather than, trying to do this, "I get it, honey, this isn't a good time, let's check in later." You just give them the opportunity to take some space. And you know what that's like. You all have busy lives as well. And you know what that's like when you walk in your house and you've had a long day and, "Where's my food? You never have anything for dinner. I need my this. Can you take me to Staples? I got to get my," and all of a sudden if you have more than one kid, they're all over you at the same time. And what do you say? "I need 15 minutes, right? So you know what that's like when you feel overwhelmed and that people are on you. So kind of keep that in the back of your head, that when you get this sort of outlandish response to something, it's probably that. It's probably that they're overwhelmed from all of this, excuse me, and they just need to kind of take a break. So think about when you used to take your 18-month-old or older to a party, a family party over the holidays or something, right? And you take them into the party and there's food and there's noise and there's people and they're playing and there's and they're just having the best time of their life, their little lives, their little 18-month-old life. And then it's time to take them home and they fall asleep in your car seat, and then you're thinking, "Oh, I'm going to get them home and put them to bed, and it's also great." And then as soon as you put them in their bed, it's like, "Wah! Wah!" They go crazy. Why do they go crazy? Because every little part of their brain has been overstimulated, right? Too much noise, too much food, too many new tastes, too many new sounds, too many people touching them. All of their senses have been overloaded. So think when your kid starts to tantrum, think about them as that little baby that gets overwhelmed, whose little brain neurons just can't keep up with everything that they're experiencing. And that's what's going on with your adolescent too. Now there's a biological reason why they flip out on you. And here's what it is. They did an interesting study at Brown, I think it was. And the study was that they took a group of adults and a group of teenagers, and they were going to give them this same task, this identification task, while they were in the MRI scanner. They wanted to see what part of the brain was activated when they were asked to identify a face with human emotion on it. Okay, so they gave them so you're lying in the MRI scanner, and a picture pops up, and they say, "What is that face showing?" They wanted to see what part of the brain do teens and adults use when they're experiencing emotion. Now, their belief was that adults and teens have the same brain. So, of course, the same brain would behave in the same way when they were shown the exact same picture. That's what they assume. So they do all the adults and they put them in the scanners, and here's one of the faces. So this would have been one of the faces. Okay, what would you say that face was?
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise, shock, fear, right? So all of the adults correctly labeled the face as that. And when they looked at their brain, the part of the brain that they were using as they were identifying that emotion was the frontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that we think with up here, okay? Now they expected that they would find the exact same thing with the teens. So they do the same thing with the teens, they show them that face. Every single teen mislabeled that face, said that that face was anger, okay? They literally are seeing emotions in your face that don't exist, okay? Which explains a lot of the disconnect, right? You know, how many times have your kid will say to you, why are you mad at me? You know, when you haven't even said anything, and you're like, what do you mean? You look mad. And I'm like, I'm not mad. I'm going to get mad because I'm getting frustrated. They literally misread the sound of your voice. They misread what your face looks like, because what they found out was that the part of the brain that teenagers use to identify emotion is the amygdala, which is in the back of the brain, and that's where emotion comes from, okay? So literally, you live in a different brain than your teen does, literally, okay? So when your teen has done something, one of those times where you're like, are you kidding me? You know, one of those, are you kidding me moments, one of those, what were you thinking? One of those moments, okay? One of those, when you're not thinking, feeling. So I call this the awesome brain. So what happens is, kids get caught up in the emotion of everything. So they're like, you know, it'd be so awesome. You know, I can see that, you know, like tomorrow, if there's a snowstorm, or, you know, whatever the last one was, you know, if you got a boy, you know, and the boys are like, you know, it'd be so awesome. Let's like surf on the back of the plow. Like, that'd be so fun. Okay, so they don't, you know, they're not going, well, see, if I hung on to the back of the plow and then the plow stops, there's probably a good chance that I could get sucked underneath the plow. Okay, they don't think things through in the same way that adults do. We call that sequential thinking. Okay, adults, you know, would know that's dangerous. Okay, kids, you know, maybe somewhere in the back of their head they think it's dangerous, but they are so caught up in like, oh my God. So teens live in oh my God moments. Okay, so if you think of this amygdala as a volcano, okay, sometimes it erupts with awesome, and sometimes it erupts with just leave me alone, fire. Okay, so their emotional part of their life is what's in control because of all this stuff that's going on. Okay, so if you try to talk to them when that volcano is in eruption mode, it's a losing battle. You will get nowhere. That's why fighting with a teenager when they are already out of control is the worst time to have a conversation with them. And unfortunately, what happens a lot is that when you're in an argument with your teen, they know just how to push your buttons, which is their intent, by the way, because they, all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, I have the ability to get my parents to go crazy. That's a thumbs up moment for them, okay? Because it makes them feel like, oh my God, I have all this power. I can make them into raving, screaming maniacs. So one of the things I'm going to talk to you now are I'm going to talk about the four major ways, the four major kind of arguments that many parents get into with their kids. Well, all parents. There's nothing here that you don't deal with probably on a daily basis. And so what I'm going to try to do is give you some tips for these arguments, understanding that this part of the brain is going a little cuckoo, and that you can't deal with a teenager in the same way that you've dealt with your kids that are in elementary school. You can't parent in the same way. Having a teenager requires you to parent in a completely different way. Because when your kids are in elementary school, you can, as I saw, somebody here with their kid, is like, you have to go here. That's just the way it is. You can pick them up and you can move them, or you can say, I've had it with you, go to your room. And they're like, okay, I'll go to my room. But most younger children, you are their number one. Okay, you are the most important person in their life. There's nobody they would rather spend any time with. And they may get mad at you because you're not there. Like, I want a cookie before dinner, or I want to stay up a little later tonight. And they want you to let them do something, but it's not personal. It doesn't feel so personal. But parenting a teenager feels more personal because they are literally seeing you in a new way. So part of those new thoughts I was talking about is one of the new skills that thinking teens have is this new ability to think on a much deeper level about things. So that's why in their English classes and in their history classes, they're asked to think. It's not just like, well, who are the main characters of the story, and who are they, and what the who, what, where questions. Now they want them to really read between the lines and try to understand what's going on with the characters and think more deeply about analyzing, right? So that's a new thinking skill. Gossip is analyzing. Okay, kids gossip in adolescence because all of a sudden they're starting to think about what this person is really like. Oh, you know what? Or she dresses this way, and that must mean that she feels this way, and she's really slutty, and and now they start to think about their thoughts are just coming to them like rapid fire. And who else do they think new things about but you guys? Okay? They are now analyzing you like a great therapist. They are now looking at you in ways they never looked at you before. Because they can understand now. They have this ability. Their brain is just shooting them. Oh my God, I never knew my parent was a hypocrite. How come they tell me not to do something, but then they go and do it? They tell me to get off my phone, but they're on their phone all the time. They tell me to get off my iPad, but they're, and then, they start to see, because no one's perfect. There's no perfect parent in this world. We all say one thing and do another thing. We all, because I'm the parent, I say so. They'll, if you have a teenager and they see you having a glass of wine with dinner, it's like, how come it's okay for you to drink and drive? Maybe you're having a glass of wine, you're going out with friends, or you're out to dinner at a family dinner, and you're all having a glass of wine or a couple of beers, and then you're getting in the car and driving them home, and they're like, hey, how come you always tell me I'm not allowed to do that, but you can do it too? Like, they will start to see all these things now. Okay, so it's like having a therapist. It's really like having a therapist in your house. And so if you kind of listen to what they say, maybe you'll find something new about yourself you need to work on. I know when my daughter was a teenager, I learned a lot. It was a lot cheaper too than having to pay for therapy. Okay, so there are I think that these are 4 of the most common ways that teens hook us in arguments. The first one is what I call the gotcha ones. So the gotcha ones are those times where your teens have taken off the rose-colored glasses and they are looking at you through this new lens, and they get a little bully. They get a little mean. They get a little critical of you. Turn around is fair play. So now it's like, you're going out in that. They'll start to criticize the way you dress. They'll start to criticize, the way you cook. They'll criticize the food in your house. They'll criticize your job. They'll criticize your, all of a sudden they start to realize, all these things about you they never thought about before. And they don't have an edit button yet, because as I said, these new thoughts are coming like wildfire, right? They're kind of not controlled thoughts. As an adult, we think the same things. I mean, you're probably thinking something about me now, but it's not like you're screaming it out. You're just saying, what's that funny thing in your, but you just, you keep it to your, that we're allowed to think anything we want, but we know we keep it to ourselves. The kids aren't in the, I'm keeping this to myself place yet, okay? They don't have those controls because this awesome brain of theirs is like, oh my God, I just thought about you this way, and I never thought, that's so fun. So oftentimes they will say something to you that feels very mean-spirited. I'm not talking about when they've crossed the line and really gone overboard. I mean when they've made that kind of snarky, sarcastic, kind of put you down in some kind of a some way. So most parents respond in this way. Don't you talk to me like that. You don't say, you get angry. Again, you want to teach them a lesson. This is about, this is about respect, and you don't deal with me disrespectfully. And then the kid will go, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't say anything. So, and then now you get into a lecture about disrespect, and give me your phone, give me your computer, you go there again. So here's what I want you to do. When your kid gives you that kind of snarky, sarcastic, I'm better than you kind of, and it's like a bully. And so, if you're bullied, the one thing you don't want to give a bully is any kind of satisfaction that they have gotten to you, okay? Because that gives them the power. So what I want you to do is, rather than sticking the finger out and saying, I don't like you, because once you say, I don't want you talking to me like that, they just did. They did talk to you like that already. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go up to them and either pinch that little cheek or give them a great big hug and go, oh, I just love you when you're being a brat like that, and you smother them with kisses. You do exactly the opposite of what you think they would want, right? Because once you take that power away from them, there's nowhere to go. I mean, what are they going to, but you have to do this consistently, by the way. Don't just do it one time and expect everything to change, okay? Things take time to change. But they will start to get the message that you're going to let this kid is not getting to you. You're a grown-up, that. So if someone, comments on your clothes or the way you dress, I mean, that really is going to affect your self-esteem? No, you don't care, really. You know underneath it all your kid loves you. And it's just like their way of saying, you're not the boss of me, you're not the boss of me. It's just like those 2-year-olds. It's the same stage reenacted in a bigger body. Exactly the same stage reenacted in a bigger. The same issues are exactly the same. I want to be my own boss. Right? I want to be I'm putting my shoes on. I'm putting my coat on. You can't make me put my coat on. And, I'll wrestle you to the ground and get the coat on. And teens are reenacting that same thing. And so those gotcha fights are one way for them to feel like they have some control. Okay? So you don't have to give it to them. You don't have to give it to them, and you don't have to yell at them. You just, and you don't want to get snarky back. Right? You don't want to match sarcasm for sarcasm, because then you've gone down to their level and you're acting like a child. No, you just want to go, oi, it's so cute, and I'm telling you, it will go away. Okay, second fight is what these I call the no ones. So the no ones are the times, when your kids hit adolescence and they realize that the world is getting way bigger now. And they've got new friends. When they get to middle school and they get to high school, they're meeting friends who are doing things that they've never done before. They're going to houses they've never been to before. They're different parents. Now you don't know the parents in the houses, where the kids are going. I mean, in elementary school, you've known these parents for years now. If the kids know which houses to hang out at, because those might be the houses that kids get, have less supervision. But they're going to be asking to do things using this awesome brain. Okay, so they're going to, they're all sitting around the cafeteria table, and tonight probably they thought there was a snow day tomorrow, and they're like, oh, what would be great? Let's all go to somebody's house and have a sleepover tonight, because they're all jacked up thinking that tomorrow's going to be a snow day, right? Now, you of course know maybe there will, maybe there won't, but this to you is a no-brainer. It's during the week. You're not going to have a sleepover. Okay, there's no discussion. I mean, there's no ambivalence. This will be a no. Totally going to be a no. Okay. So I'm talking about those times where your kid wants something that's unreasonable or unsafe. These are the two kind of fronts when the no is really, there's no question in your head. So this makes this fight really easy, because once you're clear that this is a no, because remember that your kids are very invested in having you say yes. So when they get you going, so you've said no, and they get going, and then they make you get on the defensive, and then they start yelling and screaming at you. For them, this is a thumbs up moment, because they're hoping that they can just wear you down, because maybe in the past that has worked for them, okay? So when you say the no, don't expect that they're going to go, good parenting call, Mom, Dad. You're right. It is a school night, and I could use it tonight to get a little extra reading in. So, so I get a good night's sleep, I get to sleep. No, they're not thinking any of that. This awesome brain already has them at the sleepover. So the one thing you have to know is when your kid comes to you with some ridiculous, outrageous, wanting permission to do something, they haven't thought it through. Absolutely have not thought it through. Don't even have that expectation. They're just, oh my God, this is going to be fantastic. No one's talked to their parents. Everyone's got some idea going in their head. And literally in their head, they're there. So here's an example of that. A mom called me, and her daughter is 16. The best friend of the daughter is 16 and a half, okay? So her daughter, and she's known this girl since she was in preschool. This is like one of those friends, the girl has had since she was little. The parents are best friends. I mean, it's just like family. This girl is like family to her. So her daughter walks in from school into the house and says to her mom, oh my God, guess what? Jennifer just got her license today, and she's going to come over and she's going to pick me up, and we're going to go out for a drive. And oh my God, so exciting. Okay? They have dreamed of this day since they were, in preschool watching some show that a teenager could drive a car. Okay, they have dreamed of this day when they would be in the car, the windows are down, the radio is blaring, they're, having the time of their life, because this is something they've looked forward to. So this girl, she wasn't thinking,
You can't drive people in your car when you've just gotten your license. You have to be 17 to take passengers in your car that aren't your siblings. That's the law in Massachusetts. They've learned that in driving school. Their parents have drummed it into their head. It's not like they don't know this. But this part of the brain, oh my God, we're going to get to go driving around. They're not thinking that through, okay? So the mom got caught up for a second because she was excited for this girl. This is a girl she's known, since she's a little girl, and oh, she's got her license. But then all of a sudden it clicked in for her. Oh my God, I can't let her go in the car. It's against the law, and she just got it today. So, she starts off very calmly, honey, you can't go in so-and-so's car, Jennifer's car. It's against the law. Well, as you can imagine, the daughter flipped out completely. You never let me do anything. All you do is smother me. And she, went into all the, all the usual barrages of you're so unfair and, you not letting me grow up, all the things. And, however she did it, she totally pushed that mother's buttons. Totally. And really, this was a no one. This was just a no one, right? And the mom was like, well, if the girl's like, I hate this family. I don't want to live in this family anymore. And the mother's like, fine, don't live in the family. You don't want to live here? Go, leave. Good. She was, at that point, she was just so aggravated and pissed off. And so the daughter goes up and, packs a little bag and, and leaves the house. And the mom knew exactly she was going to the best friend's house. And the mother, she had called her friend and said, Jennifer's, whatever her daughter's name is on the way over. And it was all fine. And she didn't call her daughter. And then the daughter called the next morning, Mommy, I'm so sorry, Mommy, because she had calmed down. This part of the brain was not so activated. She realized, though she didn't like it, that was her mother had to do that. Okay. In the moment of that fight, rather than flipping out with the daughter, because then they were both flipping out, here's what you could do differently. So this is, again, for when the answer is no, like in this situation, it's against the law. There's no question, not changing the law just for this situation. So what the mother could have done is now she could be on her daughter's side. I know you're disappointed, honey. I get how excited you were. Another one of these I get it moments. So rather than saying, well, this is the way it is, and this is the law, and and going into a whole lecture circuit about the laws of Massachusetts and driving, all you need to do is now be on their side. You've said your no. You're clear about it. Oh, honey, I know you were looking forward to this. This is going to be so hard for you. All you want to do is get in the car with her. I know. I'm so sorry you're so disappointed. And this is my best tip of the night. Just a little shrug of the shoulders. You don't go on and on. I'm so sorry. I know how to. You understand what their perspective must be. Their rather than make them feel stupid for wanting to do that. Well, of course, she wanted to do that. That makes sense, doesn't it? It makes total sense that she would want to be with her friend on her first day of her license. Unfortunately, the laws in Massachusetts say you can't do that. So now you can just be, I know how much you're looking forward to this. And that's it. That's more for you to put the period at the end of your sentence so that you don't go on like the Energizer bunny. There's no, because once your child has heard no, that girl wasn't listening to a thing her mother said. Not one thing. But if there was some kindness and some calmness in your voice, maybe the kid would just start crying, and then the mom would have been in a position to comfort her rather than get mad at her and have the girl pack her bags and leave the house. So these fights are actually, if you can keep yourself, once you're clear, you don't need to get out of control because you're clear. And this is not like because I said so. That's not what I'm saying to do. I'm saying understand your child's disappointment with your no. You can totally go there because you're not giving anything up by doing that. But what your kid is seeing is that you understand them. Rather than criticizing them and making them feel silly for being disappointed, I mean, how many times do we, I feel disappointed when someone says no to me about something, right? So it's being on their side once you're clear about your answer. So that's the no ones, okay? The next one is the pushing button ones. Okay, now, like with that woman I just described, oftentimes we just lose it. Whether it's in a no one that we're clear or whether it's maybe it was a knee-jerk reaction no. There's a lot of knee-jerk reaction no's, right? You're tired, maybe you've got 2, 3 kids. Every one of them has come to you for permission to do something, right? And by the last one, maybe it really is something that's reasonable, but you're just sick of it all, right at that moment. And it's like, no, I said, and you don't really have a reason because, there really is no reason except that you're tired and you wish you only had one child. Or maybe no child, and you don't have it in you, and you get hooked right away. And so as soon as you get hooked, your kid is in attack mode, because they know you, and they know that if you are, you show the least bit of wavering, they know that maybe they have an in, okay? Because maybe even they know, like, why are you being so ridiculous saying no to something that's so ridiculously simple? So here's the thing about fighting, is that you have to know what your own issues are around arguing, because you have to teach your kid what I call conflict resolution skills. You're teaching your kids how to resolve a conflict. Life is full of conflicts, whether it's in the family, whether it's with their friends, whether it'll be bosses in the future, whether it's with a cop on the street, right? I mean, they are going to be in situations, they are going to start questioning authority, because that's what teens are supposed to be doing now. Arguing, believe it or not, is a good sign, okay? Arguing shows that your kids are starting to think for themselves. That's what adolescence is all about. Adolescence is a time for teens to say, you really can't tell me what to think anymore. You really can't, and this is true, you really can't tell me what to do anymore. You can't, okay? You have to want them to want to do what you say, okay? That's the difference about parenting a teenager. Kids in elementary school love authority, pretty much. They love rules. Ever try to cheat with a kid, because you want to get through some game that you're playing, and you're playing with your 8 or 9-year-old, and you do something to make the game end faster, and they'll call you on it. It's like, that's not the rules. That's not the way you play. Or if you walk into any elementary school classroom, there's like the class rules. The kids could go on for days with they love rules. They're biologically driven to like rules. Teenagers are now biologically driven, because of those new thoughts that they're having, to think on their own. So they're not going to take everything you say now. Those I said so's won't work anymore. Will absolutely not work. And it will put a wedge in between the two of you. And then you're going to, the next, 5 years are going to be sort of 7 years, you're going to be arguing with your kids. So you have to do it in a different way, because the relationship is what gets your kids to want to do what you want them to do. When they feel understood by you rather than criticized and judged, they're going to be way more likely to, so when you understand that they're disappointed, or they're frustrated, or they're whatever, rather than saying, well, snap out of it, they'll want to please you, because they get that you understand them. So in this pushing buttons one, I know for me, I married a man who grew up in what I call the Bickerson family. Okay, so they argue about everything. This couple, this family. I mean, everything, and it could be from like, Annie, don't touch the shrimp. I would go there for a vacation. I'd be like, this is a vacation? When my husband and I got married, we were on honeymoon for a while there, but then, what he grew up with was what felt, right to him. And so, he started to try to egg me and argue with me in ways that, that's not the way I was raised, and that's not how I want to raise our daughter. And so we had to do a little retraining in the conflict resolution department. But, we're 32 years into it, so I guess it must have worked. So what you need to do when you find yourself out of control, and this can happen at a no fight, and it can happen when a knee-jerk reaction no. I mean, it might just happen because you're tired, because you've been working, because you're taking care of an older parent, because the house is, you're doing 10 loads of laundry. You're exhausted, and so your resistance is down. So it is easy to get caught up in one of these fights. So what I'm going to ask you to do is regain control, even when you're feeling out of control. So when you're out of control, your voice is like 10 decibels higher. You've got the veins, popping out of your throat, and you know when you're out of control. So here's the line I want you to use as a way to get yourself back into control. I want you to say, we're both out of control right now. We need to take a break. We're both out of, because you're acknowledging it's not just your kid, it's you too, right? And so you're modeling for your child about you want them to start to develop some understanding of when they lose control, because kids, when this gets off for them, they can't really get it back under control, but you can, okay? Because you're older, your brain is, older, and you have experience. And so you're going to model for them, when you get out of control, it is possible to bring it back. So we're both out of control, we need to take a break. And then you go away, okay? You go away. Don't expect them to, don't get into one of these, I've had it, I don't want to talk about it anymore, go to another room, leave me alone. Once you go there, then you still really haven't calmed down. There's nothing really has changed. So what I want you, in a calm voice, think about what your parents used to say to you. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And this is particularly true for adolescents because of what I said about that amygdala. All it takes is the tone in your voice to snap them, okay? So you do have to be conscious of that voice. We're both out of control and need to take away. Then go get in your car and go get a Dunkin' Donuts coffee, take your dog for a walk, or go to a part of the house that isn't going to be like in the next room. Don't just go into the kitchen. Don't go into the family room. Because again, your teen is very motivated to get what they want. And they sense some weakness, right? And so they want to get you to do what they want. So they're going to follow you around the house. I mean, a lot of teens are, what I call the chasers, right? I mean, they'll just follow you from room to room until they get what they want. So you have got to remove yourself, because what we want to happen is for you to calm down and for them to calm down, more importantly. So go into your bedroom, close the door if you don't want to go do any of the other things, which, it's cold winter, you don't want to go. So there are some kids who will go right into your room. They know no bounds. They're not respectful of boundaries, and if you're in your room, they're going to open the door, because they are not finished. They didn't get what they wanted, so they're not finished. If that happens, here's what you're going to do. I started doing this as a joke, but actually it really works. So our parents have emailed me a lot. So it sounds funny, but really do it. So your kid's chasing you around the house, not giving you any space. What you're going to do is, rather than saying, "I told you I'm not done yet," you're not going to do that. You're going to turn around to them in a calm voice, and you're going to say, "You know what, honey? I'm going to take a shower now. So I'll be taking my clothes off. I'll be getting naked. And if you want to talk to me, while I'm taking my shower and while I'm naked, I'm happy to talk to you." But that will just send them out of the room. They'll be gone. No kid will ever want to see their parents naked, ever, never. No, that won't happen. Okay, so that at least buys you some time. Okay, turn the shower on, take a shower, don't take a shower, I don't really care. But, for all intents and purposes, you're, naked. So then you take the time that you need. Maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's a half an hour, maybe it's an hour. Make sure that you're calm and ready to go. Then you go into where they are calmly, and don't then start back in again. Don't be like, "I want you to understand what I was saying." No, it's not about you right now. You say to them, "I'd like to hear what you have to say now. I'm calm, I'm ready to hear," okay? Allow them the opportunity to start first, because if you start in again, you're just going to get that same cycle going again. They're going to, because we've gotten them calm now. And by saying, "I'd like to hear what you have to say now," you may actually hear something this time that you hadn't heard before, because before they were in the awesome moment, right? They're not thinking things through a moment. But once they had a chance to think it through, there might be something that you could make work. Okay, I didn't get that before. Let's figure this out. Or it could be a no one again. And if it's a no one again, then you just do the, "I know how disappointed you. I'm really sorry." I had a parent whose daughter wanted to go. Well, that's the other fight, so I'm not going to go back to that. But anyway, so that's the pushing buttons fight. So it's, be clear about your own ability to listen to where your teen is. You have got to take control. You are modeling for them what it means to get yourself back under control. Just telling them to do that, "Just calm down," never works. Never, ever works. Just calm down is an invitation to rev up. Okay? Complete invitation to rev up. Okay, so that's the pushing button ones. Okay, then the final argument is the crossing the line ones. Okay, these are the ones that is outlandish, disrespectful. I mean, I don't mean those little gotcha ones. I mean, they've said they hated you. They've used a swear word, which now I can't say because I'm on cable, so I won't use it. But they have sworn at you. They have really crossed that boundary of, you get that when they're angry, but there's a difference between being angry and really crossing the line. So this is when they've really crossed the line. Okay. Again, if you stick your finger out and say, "Don't talk to me that way," they already did. Okay. They've already talked to you that way. So sticking your finger out and yelling about it is not going to change their behavior. Okay. So here's what you're going to do differently. In that really calm voice, you're going to say, that's what I call the wow moment. "Wow, I can't believe you would say that to me." And that's it. That's the one line, just one line. We're going to get to the consequence for it. See, unfortunately, what happens when kids talk like this to their parents, the punishments just roll off the tongue. That's it. Give me a phone. Give me a computer. Give me the, when you start to take away all their little tools, they know they're going to get them back. It's a meaningless consequence for them. And also, it doesn't really parallel what it is that they have committed, which to me, what they've committed is a relationship violation, okay? Not a using the phone too much violation, not staying out too late curfew violation, not a grounding thing. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with how they've treated you. So part one is, wow, I can't believe you would say that to me, and you literally just walk away. That's just the end of that. That you just stop right there, okay? Then the only thing you have to do at this point, this is not going to be like a punishment, give me your phone, give me, the next time they come to you, which could be that night, it could be the next day, it will definitely be within 24 hours, because if it's late at night, maybe they'll go to bed. But they're going to come to you and they're going to say, I need a ride to school, I need to go to Staples, did you do my laundry, have you, I'm not talking about making them breakfast and dinner. But all the extra things, think of all the things that you do, we all do for our kids because we love them and that makes us happy to do. That's why we're parents, otherwise we wouldn't have had kids, right? We love doing that stuff. So when they come to you in the closest time since they were disrespectful, what you're going to say is in this tone of voice, not like, you think I'm going to do that with you after you treated me this way? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to say, honey, I would have loved to have driven you to your friend's house, taking you to Staples, go to the mall, blah, blah. But after you just said X to me, say back to them what they've said. Literally, use the word, even if it was a swear. When you've said I hate you to me, I don't really want to do that right now. And so what they're going to start to understand is that relationships are reciprocal. And when they treat you badly, you're not going to treat them badly in return. That's not, we're not going to do, we're not playing a game here. But you're not going to do and lovingly give to them in a way that you normally do because they've hurt you, they've hurt you, and that's not how it works in the real world. In the real world, when you're a pain in the neck and you're rude and you're disrespectful, people don't want to do things for you, okay? And so you just, and again, you don't make it like, you don't stop speaking to them, don't make a game out of it. It's just for that one thing they've asked you, and if they want to go and ask somebody else in the family to drive them, fine. Just don't you do it. Okay, just don't you. So I had this mom who had a very argumentative relationship with her daughter. It was she had gotten divorced. She remarried a man. He had 3 kids. She had 3 kids. It was one of these yours, mine, and our families. She felt there was a lot of guilt about the divorce, a lot of guilt about this new man, and he wasn't so new at this point. But it was a tough family. There was because there were a lot of kids and a lot of stuff going on. And her oldest daughter, who was 15 at the time, had a lot of anger directed at this mom. And, it was hard for this mom, and she just felt so guilty all the time. So she gave in to her daughter. So the daughter would get very abusive, verbally abusive, and the mom would give in to her a lot. And so they had this dynamic going, and the kid knew that, eventually the mom would cave. And so she came to me for coaching, and we really worked hard on this. So there was one particular morning, her daughter, she used to love to drive her daughter to school because I said the 6 kids in the family now. That was like a time that she had. She drove her to the high school. She was the only kid in the high school. So it gave her, some time in the morning. It was, a mile away. And they sometimes would stop and have coffee. So it was a treat. She didn't have to do it. The kid could walk, take a bus. I mean, it wasn't like she had to do this. So she was on her way in the car with the girl. And the girl asked for something to do something, something, whatever it was. And the mom, it was a no, whatever it was, and this mom was, pretty good about when it was a no. She knew she wasn't a knee jerk. It was a, unreasonable or unsafe. And the daughter flipped out on her. Because again, she had it in her head. She'd worked it out with a friend. They've been texting all morning. And so she flipped out on her mother in the car while they were driving to school. And the mom and I had worked on this, and she was very prepared. And she very calmly said, wow, I can't believe you would do this. And she pulled off to the side of the road. She took the keys, and she left the car. She just got out, and she walked into the town. It was like maybe 10 minutes away. She took a walk. She left the kid sitting in the car with her mouth open. And, was gone about 45 minutes, went and got herself a cup of coffee, whatever. She came back. The girl had gone to school. She wasn't going to write her an excuse or whatever. But, the ride to school was a treat. That was a gift that the mother gave her because she worked. She had other kids to deal with. She had carpools and, whatever. She was a busy mom. And that was a gift that she would, and so she wasn't going to do it. And so all day long, her daughter texted her all day long. It's the first time that this woman took care of herself. And that's what I'm talking about. When your kids cross the line, you take care of yourself. That's where you need to be. Your kids have to see that you're not going to continue life as usual. I mean, you're not going to, punish them for the rest of their life, because we understand that teens' brains get out of control. Things come out of their mouth they don't really mean, but they don't have good control of yet. But there are times when they have crossed the line, and when that happens, you will set a limit on yourself, because you can't control what comes out of their mouth, right? You are out of control in that department now. And you can't put them in their room and hold the door closed anymore. That's not going to work. But you can withhold the things that you do for your kids on a hourly basis when they're home, as a way for them. And you can use that technique for a lot of things. So maybe you have a kid where there's a chore that your kids need to do, or they haven't done their homework and they want to go to a friend's house and they need a ride. You can use that very same technique when they come to you and say, will you give me a ride to so-and-so's house, and that they haven't done their chore, they haven't taken the trash out, or they haven't emptied the dishwasher, or whatever it is. All you have to say, you don't have to say, I'm not doing anything. You don't have to yell. You don't have to make it to do. You can very calmly say, gee, I'd love to, honey. Let me know when you finished your homework. Let me know when you've taken the trash, and I'll be happy to take you. So then it becomes a choice for them. The choice is they do what they're supposed to do, and they'll get the ride. They don't do it, you don't do it. But it's not like, I'm tired of taking you, and you don't do what you're supposed to do. How many times have I asked you to do it? You don't have to even go there, okay? You don't have to argue. You don't have to lecture. You don't have to do anything. So just let me know. Let me know when you've done X, Y, Z, and I'll be happy to do it. Like you're keeping yourself accountable. Again, you're taking care of yourself. I'm happy to do things for you when you do what I need to. So it's just so easy. Doesn't require any fighting at all, except that when they push your buttons. Okay. All right, moving on. Okay, so we've talked about the overloaded brain, right? We've talked about the brain that, too many thoughts, too many feelings. We've talked about the emotional volcano. So here's another limitation, and it has to do in the same way it has something to do with that, they get caught up in the emotional thing, but they don't do what we call sequential thinking. So here's an example of sequential thinking. You know that if they would take their shower before they went to bed, and put their clothes out, and packed up their backpacks and put it by the door, and think about all the things they needed for school, and had them by the door, mornings would just be the best ever, right? You know that. That's what we call sequential thinking. It's understanding, there's a goal and then the steps that you have to make to reach that goal. What happens with adolescents is that emotional volcano gets in the way every time, and they get distracted. So how many times have you, like your kids, it'll be the morning, and they have forgotten fill in the blank, math book, sports equipment, lunches, I don't know, all the things that you get that call. And it's like, you get that call, so before they go to school, you're yelling up, don't forget your math book, right? Or don't forget, you're yelling up, and they're like, I know, I have it, just leave me alone. You get the scream down. And you're like, okay, well, I did it. I told them not to forget, and then you might have even added, and I'm not coming to school. I'm not bringing it to school. Don't expect me to, you're sort of giving your little thing. And then, the call comes in at like 10 o'clock. Hi, I forgot my math book. And my math teacher said that if I don't bring my book to class, they're going to give me a 0, and I've already had. So here's the sequential thinking that the parent's going through. The teacher said that if they, if they don't bring the book in, they get a 0. They've already gotten, 4 zeros. Now it's going to affect their grade. And if they don't get a good grade, and then they get, they get to high school, they're not going to get the honors classes. They're not going to get the honors class. They're not going to go to college. You're thinking all the way down the line from a missed book, a forgotten book. So you cave. So you give in with a lecture. I can't believe this is it. This is the last time. I'm not going to do this again. You get, because you're aggravated. It was in the middle of your day. So what happens, though, is that maybe when you yelled up, they remembered, oh, yeah, got to get my math book. They screamed down, I got to get my math book. So that was in their head literally for 1 second, because maybe they looked in the mirror and they didn't like what they saw. Oh, my God, I have a big zit on my face. Or, oh, I hate my hair. Or, the outfit made them look fat. Or, their pants had a dot of dirt on it, and now they're mad because my jeans are dirty. You're just supposed to wash my, because they're so worried in their teen years about how they look and how other people perceive them. Remember that worry about what other people are thinking about them. Or maybe they got a text from a friend. What are you wearing today? I'm wearing a white t-shirt. Let's both wear a white t-shirt. So, they heard that don't forget the math book, but 1 second later, they were distracted by a million other thoughts, because that's what happens in adolescence, right? So just telling them, don't do something, don't forget, you better not drink, you better not this, you better, just telling them not to do something is not a strategy. You have to understand that many things get in the way of them doing the right thing, okay? The worry about being self-conscious, distracted by a million other things at the moment you ask them to do something. So your work as a parent is not just to say, don't forget, or you better not. Those are not parenting strategies. Strategies are coming up with literally the steps they need to take. So let's use the not remembering one then, and I want to take it into risky behavior. So say it's the forgetting issue. So I worked with this parent once whose daughter was a very high energy kid, involved in a lot of things, a little ADD on top of it. She was very easily distractible, and every day it was something else. Every day the mother would get called, and they punished her and they took things away. I mean, they did everything, but that didn't matter because the kid didn't have a strategy to remember what she needed to remember. Just telling her you better get your math book in your book, that didn't work. So we came up with a strategy. So the girl with a mom was a list maker. Okay, this mom was a list maker. She had a very type A personality, and she just loved making lists, and she would say, honey, you know what, I make lists, and I check off everything I finish, and, then I know exactly what I have to do, and it's so great, and, lists are great. And so, the daughter for a minute bought into it. Now, I want you to know that this daughter and this mother, completely different personality styles. Very different, very, very, very different. So for the mom, making lists worked. So one night, they bonded over the list, and they made a list, and the mom was excited. Oh, this is it, the start of something big, something good. And then the next morning the call came in because she'd forgotten whatever. Why? Because the list was on the floor, in the laundry basket, because it wasn't her, it didn't match where her brain was. It wasn't her, really her idea. It was her mother's idea for her. This is why you can't problem solve for your kids, because you are not your kids. Your kids are different people, different personality styles, different learning styles, different thinking styles, and you have to respect that. So here's what they did. The girl was very artistic. Color spoke to her. Maybe you have kids, music speaks to them. I mean, you have to think, who is my kid and what will work for my kid? So they went to Staples and they got multicolored Post-it notes. And the girl didn't have to write any words on the Post-it notes because she knew. So the blue was the color of her math book, and the red were her school colors, and that was her gym equipment. And so she had a different color for all the things that she needed to remember in a day. The one thing that her parents would do for her every night was, before she went up to her cave for the night, they would make sure that she had took out the colored Post-it notes that she needed, and she would put them on the door jamb going out to the garage. Okay, that's a strategy. Okay, so now when that girl comes down in the morning and she walks out to the car, to the garage, she has put up until it became routine for her, because I knew that she was going to need help remembering to put the Post-it notes up, because it wasn't integrated, it wasn't part of her personality, it wasn't part of her routine yet. Routines take time. Anyone who's ever tried to go work out in a gym, if they've never worked out, and you start going for a month, and then oh, that's like my husband. How many times have I bought him a membership? He goes like 3 times, and then that's it, because he doesn't ever go long enough for it to become part of him. So then in the morning, when that kid walks out to the car, there are those things right on that door jamb. Now, if she chooses at this point, because she's too lazy, she doesn't want to, she looks and she goes, I don't have my math book. Now that was the last thing she saw. If she chooses at that point not to go back upstairs because she doesn't feel like it, then when that call comes into that mother or that dad, so easy, because all they have to say is, gee, I'm sorry it didn't work out for you today. Hope better luck tomorrow. The strategy's in place. There's no lecture. You don't need to lecture. Well, it was on the door. Why didn't you pay attention to it? You don't even have to go there, because you're not going to rescue. You're just going to say that the strategy's in place. Gee, I hope it works out for you tomorrow. So the work is coming up. Maybe your kid is really into music, and he can set a music alarm. It reminds him to do something before he comes down this. So you be creative. Having to parent adolescents, you've got to be creative about this stuff. So this business about coming up with strategies. This isn't just about remembering math books, but kids need strategies for when they are out in the world. You know, they are going to be in many new situations that are firsts. First party where there's alcohol and drugs. First sleepover where someone's, got the, computer on and they're, there's a lot of new sites when I'm done with this, I want to tell you about all the social networking sites you need to worry about. But, it's sleepovers. I had a parent call me the other day. She went into her daughter was having a sleepover with a bunch of girls, and she went in, and up on the computer was this website called Chat Roulette, which is, this daughter's 12 years old, by the way. This is not like 18-year-old kids. 12 years old. Chat Roulette is a website that is like live sex shows. It's the only way I can describe it. It's like, you don't even have to log in. You just go to the site and you say what you're looking for, and you'll find girls find men who are literally masturbating on the screen. That's what it's gross. And boys, and then a lot of times boys will go on it and they'll find teenage girl. I had a parent who had his son had found some teenage girl in Montana. She was 15 years old, and they're having like co-masturbation sessions in the bedroom. She walked in on him. So kids are using these, and these girls were just doing it because it was outrageous. So the mother walks in, and the kids are on Chat Roulette, and the mother was just freaking out. Called all the girls' parents, had the girls come. I mean, she was completely freaking out. And so, your kids are going to, and her daughter happened to have been the ringleader, okay? So your kids are going to be in situations where they don't know what to do. I bet that there are kids that all those girls, in fact, the mom said, not all the girls, they was weird and icky, they didn't want it, but they didn't know what to do. Right? So it wasn't, you can't just say, I don't want you watching that Chat Roulette thing, okay? Because they might be at a sleepover where, or kids are Skyping with boys at another party, or they're texting, who knows? They're getting in their underwear and dancing and sending pictures, or they're at a party where they come to a sleepover and people are bringing booze in their backpacks, and then they're down on the third floor and they're drinking. Not all kids want to do bad things, okay? But if no one has given them an idea of what else they can do, because of that hyper self-consciousness, kids get themselves in trouble. They don't think, they get caught up in a moment. So there are those kids who, get caught up in, oh my God, this will be so fun. And I'll tell you a story about that in a second. Or they don't really want to do it, but they don't know what else to do. They get stuck in a situation they can't handle. And so your job is to, anticipate what are the situations, even your kids, little naive little kids. Like there was a situation that happened. I just got a call from a mom this weekend. A 11-year-old boy was on a ski trip or some kind of a trip, a group trip. And the kids were not supposed to bring their smartphones. But I'm sure some of the parents, wanted to be able to connect with their kids, so the kids snuck them in the backpacks or whatever. And you know that when your kids have smartphones, they have unlimited access to internet. So a bunch of boys, so this boy was sitting with his friends on the bus, and one of the friends had his smartphone or a tablet or something, and they were watching porn in the back of the bus, and bad porn. And boys, this is a favorite pastime of boys, and when they have smartphones, it makes it very easy because they can small and they can. So they're all huddled around the phone. This 11-year-old boy was very uncomfortable with the situation, and his parents had never had a conversation with him about it because why? They're like, oh my God, he's 11 years old. I'm not to have a conversation about what do you do if you're in a situation where a bunch of boys pull out some porn. I mean, they just never thought that they would have to have that kind of conversation with him. But he tried to get away, and the boys were like calling him pussy and you're gay and whatever. So he didn't know what to do. He didn't have anything to say. He didn't have a script he could call on. And so when he got home, he was very upset. And when the parents asked him how his trip was, he started crying. He was 11. He was really upset. So it's anticipating that even your wonderful, delightful children, and they're all good kids. This is not about good kids versus bad kids. I don't think those boys were bad kids either. I think they've been given a tool that they're not ready to handle, like a smartphone, and they're getting into stuff that they shouldn't be getting into, but parents have given them the stuff, and all bets are off when you choose to give your kids those kinds of things, and unless you're sitting with them all the time, which would mean 24-hour babysitting. And so so now I said, well, now you have to start preparing your kid. He's going to be in situations. Now boys are watching porn. He's 11 years old. So now you have to say, let's figure out, what you're going to do. You can go to the bathroom. You can, say you feel sick. I mean, a bus was, you might have said, oh, I got to go talk to so-and-so, at the bus. So it's helping them with strategies. It's saying, okay, you're going to be at a sleepover where someday someone's going to bring some booze in, or the girls are going to want to, take pictures of themselves in their bra and underwear. Something's going to happen. I want to make sure that so you don't do it like now. Maybe some night they're going to sleepover, you have a 12, 13-year-old daughter, you say, you know what, honey, maybe this won't happen, but it could happen. Could happen that you're at a sleepover sometime and XYZ is going on. Let's figure out what you could do so that you feel like, you have an out. You can give them a text word, that they text you a word that when you get it on your phone, even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you call the family house, and you say, we have a family emergency, I have to come and get my kid. So your kid knows that if they text that word to you, you're on it. Okay? They don't have to make a whole long explanation on their phone. It's just like a quick word that means I'm in trouble, I need your help. And maybe you have something, you'll pick her up, a block away from the house if it's at a party. So it's understanding that there is a lot of stuff that goes on in adolescence. That's just part of the deal. There is drinking, there is sex, there is drugs. You can't just put your head in the sand and say, oh, not my kid would never do that. Okay? They're gonna be in the situations, and they will be tempted, because it's about temptation, not about trust. I trusted you not to do that. And it's like, why? Why did you trust them? Why would you trust them? They're adolescents. They're tempted. This thing is going off in their head. They're self-conscious. They got friends that are, why would you ever expect? It's not about trust. And I say this over and over again. It's not about trust. It's about temptation. It's understanding that and preparing them with strategies, rather than saying, if I find out you did X, Y, Z, you're grounded. That is not helpful. Okay? That is not helpful. What's helpful is, I get that this stuff is going on, whether it's a school, whether it's a dance, or, it's an evening football game, or it's a sleepover, or it's a birthday party, or a bat mitzvah, I don't know, there's a million things your kids are going to go to, and I just want you to acknowledge that stuff goes on at this, it's not like the good old days. It's not like when you were kids. So you have to acknowledge it, and don't say, oh, it's those kids, not my kid. It's all kids. All kids. Okay? So strategy, strategy, strategy. Not just getting mad, not just punishing. Punishing is fine. It doesn't change behavior, believe it or not. There should be consequences. I'm not saying kids should get away with stuff, but it should always be two parts. Here's the consequence. You did something wrong. We got to have a consequence. And let's make sure it doesn't happen again. Let's come up with a strategy. What got in your way? What happened? Tell me what happened. And then let's figure out so that you can be more safe the next time. So in an understanding voice, okay? And don't do it for them. Here's what I think you should do. That's not helpful. Let's do it together. Okay. So the last thing I want to do is I want to do cell phones, because we only get 10 minutes. And this is big stuff in social networking, which, yeah, okay. First of all, don't get your kid a smartphone. Okay, I can't say that enough. If you've already gotten your kid a smartphone, it's like a passion of mine to not give kids cell phones. And I know it's so hard, because kids are saying, everybody else has one, and it's true. I mean, parents will tell me, parents are buying their kids smartphones when their kids are in 4th grade and 5th grade. It's a dangerous thing for it to be in a kid's hands. And I think that the problem is that there is an expectation that somehow your kids will use the phone in the same responsible way in which you use those phones. But your kids are not adults, okay? And there is so much on those phones that they can do without supervision and get themselves into such potentially dangerous situations. So I'm going to try to help you with that, even if you have gotten your kid a cell phone. But the first thing, whether it's a smartphone or a regular phone, no cell phone should go into bed with your kids. I had a long conversation with this. Oh, I felt so bad for this parent. There's been a lot of suicides in Newton. Just had their 3rd suicide attempt. This girl was 15, 16 years old. 3 in the last, very recent. And this woman's son is good friends with this girl, not one of the girls that committed suicide, but a girl who's very depressed, a friend of hers. He's just a friend. And this girl has been calling him every night. They're on the phone for hours, from like 12 to 4, because he has a cell phone in his room. And she's been calling him, and because she's like, I feel really anxious. I think I'm going to hurt myself. And she's been cutting herself. And this poor kid feels so responsible and was afraid to tell the mother, was afraid to tell the parents, and and if the phone wasn't ever in the kid's room, the girl would have had to talk to her own parents. Not, I mean, we've worked out something to help this kid deal and this mom help get these parents on board, but. When a kid's phone is in their room, there are, it's on vibrate. You don't hear it. Kids are texting them in the middle of the night. A lot of the drama happens around then, and a lot of sexual and stuff goes on late at night when they're in beds. There's no need for it. And this goes for laptops, iPads, iTouches, iPods. I think I've covered them all. They're all the same. They're all exactly iTouches, iPads, and smartphones, exactly the same, except that you can't call on an iPad, okay, or an iTouch. I mean, they're all the same. None of them should be in your kids' rooms after, And so, if you have a kid who has a smartphone, you want to try to get it away with them. Get it away from them. This might work. So what you can say is, we're going to agree on a time that the phone comes out of, everything comes out of their room. And I'm not going to fight with you about it every night. So here's the thing. When you have an old-fashioned flip phone, you can just call your carrier and they will shut it off, so you can schedule it. So it's like a DVR, so it automatically shuts off at 10 or 10:30, and then it's not like you have to go in there and say, give me your phone. That's when the power struggle comes. Give me 5 more minutes, give me your phone. 5 more minutes, give me your phone. 5 more minutes. And by now it's like a half an hour longer. Do not get into a struggle with your kid about taking the phone away. If they don't give it to you willingly, and this is what you say, you have a choice. You can give the phone to me willingly, at whatever time we decide, or I'm going to switch out your smartphone for a regular phone. And that way you can just shut it off. So if they're motivated to keep their smartphone, then they will give it to you without a fight. But that's it. Don't get into this 5 more minute business with them. The phone comes out. The other thing they're finding is that the light in the screen of all these, when kids are watching a movie on their tiny little screen, the lighting it tricks the brain into thinking it's still awake. It wants to be awake. And so we are raising a generation of teens who are going to turn into it, who already have sleep issues and insomnia, and and then and I teach college at Curry College, and none of these kids can get to sleep anymore. I mean, it's a serious issue, having sleep disorder at 14. Okay, but that's because so no devices should have regular television's fine, but no devices, and because the other thing is they're interactive. Watching a television is passive, and eventually you go to sleep. But if you're watching something on your phone and a text comes in, or you're posting on Twitter, you're posting on Instagram, you're busy doing while you're in, it's really, really destructive to sleep patterns. So that's. Never take a cell phone to bed, and the drama that can happen from having it there. If your kid has a smartphone, there are so many apps out there now that your kids just keep downloading, and some of them are dangerous, and I'll tell you which ones. But the other thing is, it's a time suck, okay? It is a time suck, because if you have a kid who's on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, texting, Vine, Snapchat, Snap Video, KIK, Ask FM, they are posting on all of them, okay? I mean, so just think of the amount of, so not only are they posting, but they have to respond to what people have responded to them, and then what other people have written, and that it is the enormous amount. It's amazing the kids even get any work done anymore. Because they, and they can do it on their iPad, and they can do it on their iTouches. You have to be aware of all the devices that you have in your home. And then, here's the deal. You're in charge of the downloads. If your kids can download things without asking you, you have to go, like I know in an iPhone, there's an inner password that you can get, you put in your phone that disables them from downloading apps. Because most of the kids now know your Apple ID number, and all they have to do is type it in, and they're downloading TV and movies, and they don't need to have all that stuff. That's what, those are distractions. They're distracted enough. Okay? They are distracted enough, and having all those extra apps on their phone, and then you say, why aren't you doing your homework? Well, I don't know. If you had to do like algebra versus watching a repeat of Friends on your iPad, I mean, which would you do, right? So it's too much. So I would say they can be on either Twitter or Instagram, not both. Okay? They have to choose, and you're in charge of what gets downloaded on that phone. No kid should be on Snapchat or Snap Video. Those are the ones where supposedly everything disappears in 5 seconds. All someone has to do is take a screenshot of the thing. They're not safe. Kids are using that to send, a lot of girls will send a sexy picture thinking, and boys are putting hardcore pressure on girls. So if you have sons, you've got to talk to your sons about this. And then girls are offering because they like the attention and they feel like, well, if I do this, then the boy will like me and I'll have a boyfriend, which of course it doesn't really happen. But so they use the Snapchat and Snap video thinking that it's going to go away. But if a girl takes a sexy picture of herself on Snapchat and then sends it to a boy, all the boy has to do is take a screenshot within that 5 seconds, which they're very good at doing, and then they can pass it all over the school. It is not safe. There's no reason your kid needs to have Snapchat or Snap video on their phones. It should not be allowed, okay? And you need to be on top of that. It's not safe. Kik and Ask FM, also very dangerous. Ask FM is it's a way you put a profile up on Ask FM, but then people can post on your profile anonymously. It is just a setup for bullying. That is all it is. It is a way. So a mom was telling me the other day that a girl on her own profile wrote, somewhere she put on her profile, but as if she was somebody else, do you think Amy's pretty? She wanted to see if kids thought she was pretty. The girl had an Ask FM account, and then she pretended she was somebody else. Do you think someone was pretty? And unfortunately, kids were very mean to her. So she asked whether or not she was pretty, and then kids said she wasn't because they didn't think it was her that was asking the question. So people were posting on her profile thinking, because everyone's on everybody else's profiles. This is why there was that recent suicide of that girl in Florida, because she had been on Ask FM. Her parents didn't know it. Most parents have no idea that their kids are on this site. Again, there is no reason for them to be in the site, none. It's just a bullying site, that's all it is. It's a way for kids to say things without having to take responsibility for them, because it's not like on Twitter where their name shows up, their Twitter handle, or their, on Instagram when they have a hand, so those at least are identified. Ask FM, terrible. Kik is usually linked to somebody's Instagram account. Again, very dangerous. So what can happen is, say I'm at a party with a bunch of friends, okay? And I'm cute. Let's just pretend I'm cute, okay? And somebody takes a picture of me at the party, okay? There's a bunch of kids at the party. Everybody takes a picture, and I'm in the picture, and that friend who posted on her Instagram account, okay? And I'm tagged in that picture, okay? Now, that girl has camp friends who live in Idaho, okay, who look at her Instagram. If I'm, still me, Joani Cute, and I have what's called Kik on my Instagram, so kids' profile will say Joani Geltman, then it'll say Kik me, and then I'll have like a handle so someone can come and find me. A strange boy that was friends with that girl can see my picture on her Instagram, look up my name on Twitter, because anybody can just go onto Twitter, right? You don't have to follow the person. Find out where it says Kik me, and then find me. So some kids are having these relationships with kids they've never met, but they were tagged in somebody's picture on Instagram. It's very unsafe, very unsafe. And Kik is an app. It will show up on your kid's phone. So the kids, as far as I'm concerned, kids should have either Twitter or Instagram. I get that they want to stay in touch with their friends. I don't have a problem with that. And you should be monitoring. You absolutely have to be monitoring your kid's phone. And this mom that I just met with, with the chat roulette thing, that was like a sign for her. What's going on? That my daughter's on chat roulette, and then she started looking at her phone, and she just couldn't even believe it was on there. Pictures and sexual content and whatever. So, and this was, this is the nice family, lovely kid in a million. This is one of those in a million years I never thought it would be my kid, and that's every parent that comes to me. Okay, every parent that comes to me is never in a million years did I think it would be my kid. It's temptation, it's access, and you have to be aware of that and say, I get kids are doing this. We got to figure out how to keep you safe. And part of it is going to be monitoring. Every now and then I'm going to ask to see your phone. Don't make it like a random drug test. Make sure that they, you want to make sure that you do it in a way that surprises them. Otherwise they'll just do stuff and then delete it. You want to be able to see what's on there. Enforce a daily 2-hour cell phone break, iPad break, except if it's homework. your kids need to be, I don't care if they have no homework even. This is not about just for homework purposes. This is kids, this generation of kids cannot be alone in their own thoughts. It's a very scary, the way you learn to deal with your feelings, with the anxiety, is by sitting with them and developing coping mechanisms. Kids are not learning any coping mechanisms anymore because they're literally attached 24 hours a day. And so when they get into relationships that require and stresses in their life, work stress and school stress, they're not going to be prepared to deal with them because they're not even alone with their own thoughts. The only way you get through stuff is by thinking it through. And so shut the whole family down for a couple of hours. If they have a regular phone, you can just shut it off. They can give you the smartphone, and then you can say, no smartphone from 6 to 8 or 7 to 9. If you don't hand it to me, I'm switching it out for a regular phone. I mean, you always get that in your back pocket if you've already given your kids a smartphone. Monitoring the cell phone and no cell phone use. If you're anybody here with driving kids, but some people out there might be. So if you have a kid who's going to become a driver in the next 6 months, or at least get their permit, so maybe they're 15 in a few months, if you're going to have a kid who's going to be driving in the car and is addicted to their cell phone, you have to literally get them conditioned to be in a car, not on their phone. And that does not happen the day they get their learner's permit. That has got to happen before. So if you have a kid who's motivated to get their license, there should be a new rule. New rule is whenever you're in the car, you sit in the front seat, because eventually they'll sit in the front seat, and your phone gets shut off for the time that you're in the car with me, because eventually you're going to be in the car and you want to make that connection. I get in the car, I shut off my phone. I get in the car, I shut off my phone. Because otherwise, if you expect to have it magically happen because you said you're not allowed to use your phone when you're driving, it's never going to happen. Okay? They have got to practice that behavior. Okay? And just one fast thing. I just want to do this teen-proofing your home. So the number one place, so these are sort of house rules. The number one place that your kids get booze, I don't care if they're 11 years old, I don't care if they're 14 years old, I don't care if they're 16 years old. I've had too many stories of 11-year-olds thinking, oh, let's see what the alcohol tastes like, and end up taking copious amounts of alcohol from their parents' house. You've got to lock up your alcohol. And when your kids say to you, don't you trust me? Okay, not about trust, about temptation. And maybe it's not for your kid, but if kids are coming into your house and you've got booze in the house and you've got beer in the refrigerator and you've got wine coolers and hard lemonade, they're going to be into it. And if you have hard liquor, they'll pour water, they'll take some out and pour water in it and dilute it. And, if it's there and they're curious and if they're the best kids in the world, it is temptation. It's just absolute temptation. Why would you want to set your kids up and their friends potentially in harm's way? So locking up your empty house plans. If you're going away for a weekend and you think you stashed your kid at your sister's house or your, their best friend's house, and you said, you're not allowed to come back to the house, and like, oh yeah, never come back to the house, never do that, Mom, Dad, they'll come back to the house. So again, temptation, because a friend will say, oh, come on, man, your parents aren't home, they'll never know, famous last words. So what you need to do is, again, you need to anticipate. I get kids are going to put some pressure on you because we're going to be away. I know you're not supposed to come back into the house, but here's what we're doing. We've called the Stoughton police. We've told them we're going to be away for the weekend and that we have a teenager, but he or she is staying somewhere else. But we would appreciate it if they would make the rounds, at our house to make sure that the kids aren't there. And then you tell your son or your daughter, the cops are going to be coming around the house multiple times every day, and that gives you an out. So if your kids say to you, your friends say to you, oh man, your parents are out, you can say, hey, you're not going to my house. My mother already has the cops coming. That it just gives them the script. It gives them the strategy. It doesn't set them up to fail. Okay, so again, anticipation of what are some of the norms of adolescence and not wanting to set your kids up to fail. Sneaking out. Sleepovers are sneaking out heaven. Okay. Why? They all got their cell phones. They've got their, they're all, whatever. And why do kids sneak out? Sometimes just because they want to see if they can do it. So that's one of it's just the challenge. And the other thing is because they make plans with other sleepovers. And, and because with Twitter and texting and all that, it's like instantaneous. Kids are out in the street. They're in cars. They're driving around. They're walking the streets if they're not of driving age. It's just dangerous. Out and out dangerous. So when you have a sleepover at your house, you should say to your kids, you know, guys, I am an insomniac. I just am up and down all night long. And set your alarm for 1, for 3. You know, I think after 3, you know, you come down, you're probably set for them. Not going to go out after 3. But, you know, there's a magic hour. You think you go to bed at 11 o'clock and everything's cool. I cannot tell you the number. I was just polled my college students because I think I wrote a blog, by the way, that if you take my card and my flyer, I write 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. I don't think I'll write tonight, but I got over 500 tips on there, okay? Tons of stuff about sleepovers. But this, I asked, the question was, kids bringing cars. You know, kids, other driving kids will bring a car to your house, and then, you know, you will go to bed, and then they all get in the other person. So it's not your car that's going out, it's the other kid's car. Every hand went up. Every single hand went up. How many of you went to a sleepover, brought your car, and then snuck out? Every hand went up. Yeah, okay? So you don't want your kids doing this, okay? You don't want your kids doing this. And if they know that you're up, and so parents will say, oh, but I'm so tired, I'm going to get my sleep. Too bad. Like, this is your job. You know, you didn't, when your kids had a nurse, you know, when they were babies, you didn't say, oh, you know, too bad, go to bed. No, you get up with them. This is like part of your job if you're going to have sleepovers at your house, because you go up at 11 o'clock and they're 3 floors down in the basement. You have no idea what's going on down there. Kids can bring stuff in their backpacks. Kids are notorious for bringing booze in backpacks at sleepovers because they feel like it's a safe situation. They're in somebody's house. And I can't tell you how many parents have called me and kids have gone out to end up in an emergency room. Okay? So these are just safety. If you have kids coming to your house to hang out, even just not sleepovers, just regular time, backpacks, water bottles, everything stays upstairs, Red Bulls, iced tea, you know, whatever it is, it all stays up because they may have filled it before they came to your house. And, you know, ask for a sip. And just say, no, nothing goes down in the basement, guys. We got everything down there that you need, and make sure that you have enough beverages. And, you know, but don't let those things go downstairs. Coats stay upstairs. You know, all the places that they could, you know, and they'll still stash. They'll still stash. But at least you are doing the best that you can. The best that you can. Okay, so I got to let you go. I hope you walk out of here tonight. Again, this is going to sound so weird. This is such a fun time. No. You know, the good news is that your kids are becoming their own people, their own person. And that's an exciting process to watch, to you know, hear them think in ways they've never, you know, great time to have great discussions with your kids. It's a great time of life, and it's a time of incredible temptation and change. And so you just have to anticipate it, not judge your kids for doing it, not think of them as bad. They're just doing what comes naturally, and what's coming naturally is everything that we've put out there for them. We've put out that buffet for them, and now they're trying it. You know, they're taking advantage of it. So have a great time with your kids, and thanks for coming.